You are the next generation of doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, and politicians. You are the next generation of change makers, the people who will bend rules, push boundaries, and discover unimaginable parts of our world. You are the next generation of brilliant minds, strong stances, of fighters, protesters, and prime ministers. You are the future. This is a story we hear often, with absolute conviction. We are the future. But what is the future? My favourite definition is that of Reinhard Kostlik, who describes the future as a space of expectation, a malleable period of time subject to our control. This is a conceptual definition that boils down to the future is what we make it. It's created by change. But if change is so inevitable, why is it so daunting? If change is the very basis to our existence, then why does illuminating a problem, gap, or injustice and mobilizing a reaction feel so impossible? Kostlik described the future as a space of expectation in 1979. This was a period in which information was difficult to circulate, but this very difficulty meant that it arrived with a potency and strength that gave people the power to mobilize. This stands in stark comparison to the oversaturation of the modern day. This modern wall overwhelms us with paralyzing data and bombardments of stagnant news. Rather than illuminating problems, we're being blinded by them. This may seem like a completely modern problem, but actually, it's part of a reoccurring pattern in history. This pattern is called the threshold of belief. Let's go back and take a look at the Wright brothers, for example. Wilbur and Orville Wright were incredible American inventors who on the 17th of December, 1903, achieved the first ever powered, sustained, and controlled heavier-than-air flight. These men were trailblazers in their field. They revolutionized the way we approach and look at travel, transport, and even war. It had been stated in 1895 with absolute certainty by Lord Kelvin, a mathematical physicist and engineer, that heavier-than-air flying machines are impossible. Yet, not even a decade later, the Wright brothers stood and watched their heavier-than-air craft sail into the distance. How did they do it? They surpassed the threshold of belief. They defied the common sense of the era. The question we must ask ourselves now, from the perspective of political change, is what is the current day threshold of belief? Well, it's not math, and it's not physics. Instead, it's this deep-rooted idea that awareness is equal to action. Yes, awareness is directly linked to action, but knowing something and doing something are not the same thing. In a world oversaturated with information, knowing something is the easy part. Mobilization requires you to move into that space of expectation, to actually move forward. It's also very easy in a world of extremist politics and bombardment of stagnant bad news to succumb to this idea that the world is just too broken to fix, or that your voice just isn't big enough. But what we've learned from history is that change has to start somewhere. One person, one voice, one idea, and most importantly, one action. The Wright brothers understood that the threshold of belief is only limited by what we are willing to risk. This limitation applies to politics as much as it does science. When people decide that an issue is worth the risk of a fight, we begin to see change. A clear example of this was the work of reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein in 1972, who risked their jobs, their careers, and their lives to bring one of the United States' biggest scandals to light. The Watergate scandal was a series of interlocking political scandals of the administration of the United States President Richard Nixon, in which hidden evidence revealed his involvement in a burglary and plantation of listening devices at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972. Evidence was destroyed, and Nixon ordered the FBI to halt their investigation and spread false alibis. The truth was only brought to light through the tireless efforts in investigative journalism done by Woodward and Bernstein. They eventually managed to collect enough evidence to prompt a congressional hearing and release of White House tapes that directly incriminated Nixon, leading to his resignation, limitations on presidential powers, and stronger enforcement of information laws. Watergate was a highly successful movement. It raised awareness and created a clear path for action. If we compare the resounding success of Bernstein and Woodward to other less successful movements, it becomes clear as to how awareness and action are not synonymous. Kony 2012 is a perfect example of this. Joseph Kony's use of child soldiers in Uganda was an ongoing abuse of human rights that most of the world remained entirely unaware of. It was exposed through a viral 30-minute video by non-government organisation Invisible Children. This video reached over 100 million views in days. It was extremely successful in explaining a very complex conflict in very simple terms, targeted at young people and social media users. It was then amplified by celebrities such as Rihanna and Oprah, and it had absolutely no meaningful change. Why? Because there was no clear path for action, no sustained organisation, clear political demands, or institutional pressure. Kony was not captured. He remained at large, and the protests became one of many of the internet's crash and burn movements. The most important part of history is to learn from it. We know why Kony 2012 failed. We know why Watergate succeeded. What do we do with this information? If we are the next generation, then it is our duty to build the world that we wish to live in. And our first act of change should be to break down this threshold of belief that is dampening the movements, the protests that we need to see and want to be a part of. If you take anything away from today, I hope it's the message that change isn't difficult because the problems are too big or our voices are too small. Change is difficult because it's new. We live with this idea that awareness equals action, and to make change, we have to break down our way of thinking and start all over again. And that's hard. But when we destroy this modern wall of over-illumination and under-mobilization, we will be able to step forward into that space of expectation and be the change that we wish to see in the world. Thank you.